welcome to Sectors Up Close. I'm Elena Casas. Today we're talking US industrials and my guest is John Stoltzfus, Chief Investment Strategist at Oppenheimer Asset Management. Well, as Fed policymakers continue to insist more aggressive rate rises are needed to bring down inflation, it's been a painful September on Wall Street. The industrial sector has been among the month's poor performers, ending Friday at its lowest since November 2020, as supply chain issues persist and concerns grow about wavering demand. This is the SPDR Industrial Select Sector ETF, down almost 20% year to date after substantial slumps in manufacturing giants like Boeing. The plane maker has dragged heavily on the index this year, as have General Electric and UPS, while defence manufacturers like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin have performed much more strongly. Well, for more, I'm joined now by John Stoltzfus, Chief Investment Strategist at Oppenheimer Asset Management. John, hi, thanks for joining us. So how well positioned are industrials compared to other sectors if we are heading into a US recession?
Well, we'd have to think, Elena, that when you look at this sector in particular, you have to sort of lift up the hood and take a look at what the engine is of all this. And it happens to be exposure to energy, exposure to aerospace, as well as exposure to power generation, all of which are major, not solely thematics for the market, but are for society, whether it's moving from the process of moving from fossil fuel to alternative energy, increased air travel, which is coming back. I would keep getting on packed airplanes and hearing stories of other travelers seeing packed airplanes. Need to fix engines and keep them running, and upgrades of equipment, and lastly, the energy complex would point to both alternatives as well as to fossil fuel being very important to consider, along with infrastructure build. So we think the old adage, buy low, sell high, may just apply to here, especially with the stocks considerably lower from where they were at the start of the year. And then, of course, related to the defense sector, in an uncertain world, regrettably, weaponry is an important thing to keep upgraded, and also increasing supplies and replacing a variety of weapons that have either been lost in war or have been given to allies.
You mentioned the defence sector there. Let's dig more into that. Companies like Raytheon, Honeywell, Lockheed Martin have had a good year since the start of the war in Ukraine really shook up the geopolitical landscape. Do you expect that to last? Are they a good bet for investors at the moment?
Well, we believe that has legs to it, and investors can find ETFs that actually carve out the defense sector from the broader sector, and you can just focus on those. But we like both. If we were initiating a position in industrials, we would have both, and we operate with exposure in portfolios that we manage across the sector.
You also mentioned the importance of infrastructure, which of course the Biden administration is keen to invest in. Are we going to see a clear boost here from recent legislation like the Inflation Reduction Act?
You know, we've certainly got to hope so. It looks like they haven't really started spending all that money. We think they may be holding back until after the elections and seeing how that turns out, with the midterm elections really bearing down upon us. But we have to think that the infrastructure is so important to upgrade and repair that this will be good for the industrial sector. And we forgot agriculture. What about all the agricultural equipment in a world that needs more food with climate change as a challenge?
How would you advise investors to approach this broad sector at the moment then? How should they be picking and choosing?
I think it really depends upon the investor and their tolerance to risk and volatility, of course. But generally speaking, I would think it would be good to have exposure to the broad sector as well as to the defense sector separately. And that way, should the defense sector get too rich, you might spin that out of your portfolio and just keep the broad exposure, which gives you exposure to all those other spaces that I mentioned.
Well, thanks so much for that insight, John Stoltzfus, Chief Investment Strategist at Oppenheimer Asset Management. And that's our roundup of the US industrial sector. I'm Elena Casas, and this is Reuters.